Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Double Waved Yellows podcast, which is round 17. We are reviewing the 2021 United States Grand Prix from the COTA circuit in Austin, Texas. Once again, joining me are Hodders and Tyson. Good evening to you both.
Good evening.
Lots of action to talk about from the F1 series, but first of all, we had the W Series finale, and we had a double header, which means lots of stuff to hear from Hodders. It's all yours.
Thanks, Matt. What a doubleheader it was. And even before the weekend got started, there was news enough. First off, that Irisa Dukova had been denied a visa to enter the United States despite a national interest exemption as a pro athlete. Despite much lobbying by Texas politicians and it wasn't successful. So it did mean enter Caitlin Wood for the academy team this time as reserve for both races, whereas Puma were doing their usual rotation of reserve drivers. So for both rounds, enter 18-year-old Abby Pulling for Puma. It was also confirmed by the W Series that the top 8 drivers would automatically qualify for 2022, and the 2 academy drivers, no matter where they finished. In addition, they also put in a caveat that should a champion wish to defend their title the following year, they will not be eligible for any super license points. So once you've won, it may be a sign to move on, but we'll wait and see. So as a result of the doubleheader, it meant that we had not just a race on a Saturday, but also one on a Sunday. So what they did is they added an additional practice session on the Saturday and just a practice on Friday instead of the qualifying. In both practice sessions, the top 3 were absolutely identical. Jamie Chadwick in first, as almost expected. Abby Pulling in second in both situations, and Beitske getting form in third place. Now, the qualifying session served 2 purposes. The way they decided it was this, that your best lap time would determine your position for the first grid race, and the second race would be determined by your second best time. And we had a slight difference in each one. So in each race, we had Jamie Chadwick on pole or second, and Abby Pulling on pole or second, which, as a reserve driver, is quite an achievement. There was a lot of attention on her during the weekend, as expected. So to the bite-sized racing that is the W Series Race 1, 30 minutes plus a lap as usual. And once again, in the first race, it was Abby Pulling on pole, Jamie Chadwick pulling forward, taking the lead and staying there. Abby Pulling also losing a bit of ground to Emma Kimmerleinen, who also seemed to be finding some form late into the season as well. Abby Pulling was in third place until the final lap and a half or so of the race, when she was overtaken by Alice Powell, who had qualified 10th, would you believe, for the race, which was unusual for her, though it was Alice Powell who would finish in third place. Jamie Chadwick with the win, Emma Kimmerleinen second to guarantee third in the championship, which was already nearly guaranteed, as was Abby Pulling fourth with some more points in just her third race. Beitske in fifth, which is good going for her. Jess Hawkins in sixth. So on to race 2, Jamie Chadwick on pole, had a very strong start and once again stayed there. But unlike other races, the gap never really went above a few seconds. It was still in reach for Abby Pulling in second, who held her own, some very mature driving in only her 4th W Series race as a whole. Stayed in second right to the end, which also meant she guaranteed not only her first podium in the W Series, only her 8th in Formula level racing at all, but it also meant that in just 4 races, she guaranteed herself 7th place in the championship. She will have a full drive in 2022, which as a reserve driver is a huge achievement, and we commend her here at Double Waved Yellows. Emma Kimmerleinen achieved her 4th straight podium by finishing 3rd, so she finished also 3rd in the series. Sarah Moore's 4th place was her best finish since the 4th round of the championship. She finishes 5th. We will see her. We will also see her in 2022. Nerea Marti had slightly lesser results this last weekend, but she does remain in 4th, which for the 19-year-old is a brilliant achievement. She will be back. We will also have Beitske, who also achieved another 5th position in the second race. She finished 8th. In 6th place, we had Fabian Volvend. So she finished 6th on 42 points. She'll be back, and we'll also have 9th place back in the form of Irisa Dukova, who did finish 9th due to the unfortunate events of missing 3 races, but as an academy driver, both her and Nerea Marti were guaranteed places next year as standard. So should Jamie Chadwick choose to go for the third in a row, she won't be eligible for any super license points. One thing that is notable, though, is the super license points for a win in the W Series Championship. She's now 2 times world champion. She gains 15 points for that. Thanks to her 4th in the F3 Asian last year, she now has 25 points. So you never know. We could see her doing a practice session for Williams in the future. She may only be development driver, but she is now eligible to do that. I wouldn't be surprised if she moves on to another series next year. But before that, both Alice Powell and Jamie Chadwick, I should point out, will be sharing a car for Richard Mille Racing at the WEC Rookie Test in Bahrain next Sunday.
Excellent stuff. Thanks, Hodders. And, of course, a very, very big congratulations to Jamie Chadwick, the first ever double W Series champion. Tyson, I think it's fair to say that we've had an absolutely epic battle between Jamie Chadwick and Alice Powell throughout the season. And I think it's fair to say the best woman won.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a great fight between both of them all season long. And Jamie Chadwick, I really do hope she's able to move on, maybe Formula 2, Formula 3 next year.
Yeah, I think for the W Series to actually work long term, we need to see the W Series champions coming through. Not necessarily a guaranteed route to F1 because, you've got to be the best of the best of the best to get there. But I think it would be a big disappointment if we don't see Chadwick or possibly even Powell racing Formula 2 in the next sort of 5-6 years or so.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We've got to. We are going to do a VSC podcast next week where we are going to review the W Series season as a whole. Make sure you tune in then. We'll obviously give you all the details at the end of this podcast and also on our Twitter account, which is twitter.com/DWavedYellows. Make sure you give us a follow, leave us a comment. We'll probably say hello if you do. So yeah, I think that's how it works. Moving on to the business end, the Formula 1 race, and the main headlines: Verstappen wins an epically close battle from Lewis Hamilton in second to extend Verstappen's championship lead. Sergio Perez in the other Red Bull comes home third to achieve Red Bull's 200th podium in Formula 1. Leclerc in fourth and Ricciardo in fifth. Bottas, Sainz, Norris, Yuki Tsunoda, yay, and Sebastian Vettel rounding out the top 10. And unfortunately, both Alpines failing to finish for the first time this season. So, the driver focus, and as always, we selected 3 drivers at random before the start of the weekend. And Hodders, I'm going to let you go first, as you had probably the best choice to start off with, the eventual race winner, Max Verstappen. Take it away.
I certainly did. I mean, when we did the draw last week, I think we're all quite chuckling at my selections. I couldn't believe my luck. Pole position in qualifying. He was second fastest in Q1, but he was fastest in Q2 and 3 when it counted. He raced fine during the whole race. His undercuts when it came to pit strategy, I think Red Bull deserve a pat on the back because once again their pit strategies paid off. He retained advantage to the lead over Lewis Hamilton. I think by the end, though, it could very much be judged that it was only just. I think if there'd been maybe one sector more, I think Lewis Hamilton would have taken the win.
Yeah, indeed. So a simply epic battle, and we'll talk a little bit more about it as the podcast goes on. But one thing that I found interesting to note, Tyson, and I don't know what your thoughts are on this, is that we could see in the final few laps Hamilton was closing, but when it got to that 2-second gap and Hamilton was starting to get caught in Verstappen's dirty air, he just couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah, and it's something we've seen a lot of times with the Mercedes. It just doesn't like being stuck behind another car.
Mm-hmm. But obviously, Hodders, we're going to look forward to seeing that change next year with the brand new 2022 car design, and maybe it will aid more overtaking.
You never know. We talk about this a lot. The 2022 regulations. Sorry, I was going a year in the past then. Wrong way, Hodders. I very much think that the regulations will not necessarily completely level the playing field, but I think it's certainly going to mean that other teams are going to be a lot more competitive than they have been of late. But again, until we've had a few races of 2022, we're not really going to know.
Yeah, we're not going to really see what the true impact is going to be until testing at the beginning of next season. It makes sense for me to go next with my next one because I got the other end of the stick in terms of that lead battle. I was given Lewis Hamilton to focus on. He qualified second, just 0.2 of a second behind Max Verstappen. However, he snuck past Max at turn one and tried to push hard in the first stint before his first pit stop on lap 10. Unfortunately, Max and Red Bull, as we've mentioned, really good pit strategy. Max was able to undercut Lewis, and then just a really close epic battle. Lewis managed to look after his tyres in the second stint, then push hard in the third and final, but just could not get into that critical DRS to range to get past. Hodders, we're seeing a lot of this, the undercut strategies between Mercedes and Red Bull, between Hamilton and Verstappen, and it's becoming a really interesting sort of subplot when we're looking at the potential strategies. We can see the pit stops coming up, who's going to pit first, how they're going to manage the tyres. It's so clever just to watch how it all unfolds.
It really is. It really adds something to the title race, and I think it also adds to the whole tactics and the whole mindset of all the mind games that we sometimes expect to see in F1. We don't always expect to see it with the title race being as it is, but it really is coming into play. I think more often than not, we've often seen cases where when it's a toss-up between Lewis and Max, it's the strategy of the pit lane and everything else that has actually won.
Yeah, and Tyson, it's often a case of bluff and double bluff. We see mechanics out in the pit lane. Are they going to be pitting? Is it Lewis or is it his teammate? Is it Max or is it his teammate? And it's the mind games that are really starting to kick in now with 5 rounds to go.
Yeah, and it's just really fascinating to watch these tactical battles and how they play out. As you said, it's who comes in when, who stays out, and it makes all the difference.
Mm-hmm. It does indeed make all the difference. We're talking about making the difference. I think one of your drivers didn't have a particularly great pit stop when he came in. Tyson, your first driver we're going to focus on was Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, he did have that unfortunate moment with the pit stop, but he qualified 6th, started 5th because of Valtteri Bottas' 5-place penalty, which means Ferrari had 2 cars in the top 5 on the grid for the first time since Baku 11 races ago, and the McLaren versus Ferrari battle is really heating up right now. Sainz, unfortunately, didn't come off best in the battle versus Ricciardo. They banged wheels a little bit, but he was able to finish 7th, which is more points for Ferrari, and that's what they need right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That battle between McLaren and Ferrari, I think, is going to go all the way down to the wire. But hopefully, we're going to see more of it next season, and potentially for more points, potentially podiums, and even the wins. Hodders, just that sight of seeing the 2 McLarens, the 2 Ferraris going side by side, going down the back straight on the opening lap, was just epic.
It really is epic, and it's something we're seeing more often at the moment. In more recent races, we're really seeing McLaren and Ferrari almost, you could almost say, back to their true form where they belong. When you've got the drivers of both Ferrari and McLaren getting used to their vehicles, knowing how they work at this sort of last quarter or so of the season, it's like the times of old, and it's refreshing.
Absolutely, and what better place to do it than on US soil in front of over 140,000 fans this weekend, and a total, Tyson, if I remember correctly, I think it was 400,000 across the US Grand Prix weekend. Spectacular to see that interest.
I believe that was the number, yeah.
That's what I saw.
Yeah, just incredible attention there from the fans, which is great to see. Hodders, back to you, and your second choice was Sainz's teammate Charles Leclerc.
It was indeed our Monegasque driver. It was he that prevented Max Verstappen having the clean sweep in qualifying, as in having the fastest time in all 3 sessions. He had the fastest in Q1, 4th fastest in Q2, slightly lower in terms of qualifying 5th, but due to the ICE penalty accrued by Valtteri Bottas, he was 4th on the grid. He was 4th pretty much throughout the race. I think it's almost safe to say that Not 100%, but most of his race was relatively quiet. He finished 20-odd seconds ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, and it's his fourth-placed finish of the season.
Well, Tyson, we can't say that he's not consistent, can we?
I think that's what I've been saying about him all season, that consistency is just there for Leclerc. He puts the performances in when they need it. He's getting Ferrari those points in the battle versus McLaren.
Mm-hmm. And Hodders, Leclerc is effectively the lead Ferrari driver. To have that responsibility at such a young age, he's doing a good job.
He absolutely is. He's been putting, I said, his fourth place finish of the season. He may not have had as many podium high positions as he's wanted, but he's been incredibly consistent. He's had some very rotten luck. I mean, seeing what happened at his home Grand Prix was still heartbreaking. But again, as lead driver at that age, he's taking that responsibility and showing what he should be doing as lead driver as well.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully, we will see the young Monegasque back on the top step of the podium as we saw in 2019. My second choice, and I couldn't believe my luck when this guy got pulled out of the hat for me, George Russell. Unfortunately, he didn't quite have a great weekend. Qualified 15th, got through to qualifying 2. However, he changed the whole of the engine, so he started right down at the back, climbed as high as 12th, but unfortunately with Vettel and Alonso behind him, he just couldn't keep them back and dropped down the order. And he admitted in sort of post-race comments that he never had the pace for a top 10 finish. Hodders, just an off weekend for Mr. Saturday, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was just one of those situations. I mean, again, he is... And we've said this before, he has sometimes excelled that Williams car. I wouldn't say to its limits, but he's certainly excelled it a great deal of late. It is a disappointment, but again, it's taking his perspective. The Williams car isn't as advanced as some of the others, but it didn't quite have the top 10 pace, but to parlay it from 20th to 12th is definitely nothing to be sniffed at, even taking into account the retirements. It still shows what he can do.
Mm-hmm. And Tyson, we've just got to hope that at the next race in Mexico, George can pull it more towards the front of the grid.
Yeah, he really has been out driving that car the last few weeks. So this is probably more where you expect to see the Williams, but still, good job bringing it into 12th.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. So, Tyson, on to your second driver of choice, Sebastian Vettel. Tell us about his weekend.
Yeah, he had a very similar weekend to Russell, as a matter of fact. It qualified P12, but started 18th because of engine change penalties. But he had a very good race. He pitted sensibly. He got himself in some clear air. He took 11th place from Giovinazzi with a few laps to go, and then Kimi Raikkonen's late spin gifted him the final points paid position. So to take it from 18th up to 10th, yeah, great effort by Vettel.
Yeah, good solid driving there. Hodders, we saw that pass, that battle between Vettel and Giovinazzi. Obviously great for Vettel, but that could be so critical for Giovinazzi, who we've mentioned over the last few weeks. He is fighting for his Formula One career.
He really is fighting for his career, considering that his seat... I mean, we're in what? I mean, we're recording this on the 28th of October, and his seat is still the only one that has not been confirmed. I mean, you consider the names that have been bandied around, such as Guan Yu Zhou, and the rumours he's got millions in sponsorship money. He's really under pressure to perform at the moment.
Yep, absolutely. But obviously, we're heading towards South America. Maybe he can get some good results in Mexico and Brazil. We will wait and see. Hodders, your third and final choice, Fernando Alonso. Just an absolutely shocking weekend.
He really did. I mean, he did end up... He just never really got going, Alonso did. He just never got going in terms... I mean, he already took engine penalties as it was. But he did qualify in 14, then knocked down to 19 with the engine penalties. Although I will give him some credit for helping Esteban Ocon along on his final lap, sacrificing what might have been a higher up time by giving him a tow on his final lap, which is very commendable. He had a few tussles during the race as well, including one with the other elder statesman of F1 that is Kimi Raikkonen. And unfortunately, due to various incidents, he ended up retiring towards the end of the race with rear wing damage.
Yeah, lots of great wheel-to-wheel battles between Fernando and quite a couple of the drivers. But Tyson, we all had a fairly sizable chuckle when we heard the team radio, sort of the FIA radio between Alonso's crew and Michael Massey, when they say, "Can we push drivers off the track? Can we overtake drivers like that?" And Michael Massey
No,
just
no, not
Tyson,
allowed.
that was just such a chuckle, that one.
That was nothing if not entertaining watching Alonso fighting with Raikkonen and then Giovinazzi later on.
Yeah, but it still shows Hodders, the elder statesman, as we refer to him, he's still got it.
The spark and fire is still very much in his belly and his engine. Watch this space.
Yeah, and still likes to explore those track limits more often than we like to say, but that's another discussion for another time. My final driver I was watching, and I probably used up all my good luck getting Hamilton and Russell because I end up with Mr. Spin himself, Nikita Mazepin.
Somebody has to.
Yeah, true. RNG and all that. So yeah, Nikita Mazepin qualified 20th. He did move up to 17th, although he did have a grid penalty for a power unit element change. Unfortunately, he really was down in the doldrums with luck as early as lap 1 when he had to pit bizarrely for a loose headrest. How on earth that came loose, I'll never know. He was then just fighting down the back for all the race. Ended up getting a black and white flag for infringing track limits on too many occasions. Hodders, we didn't actually see it during the race. We only saw it on social media, I think, on the Monday. Just Mazepin's headrest almost flying off down the back straight halfway around lap 1. It was bizarre.
We were talking about this offline, well, quote unquote offline. So we were saying we were surprised that it wasn't noticed by the stewards and they didn't get the meatball flag of get yourselves in to get that sorted. At least it was spotted by the team.
Yeah, I think what's basically happened is that Mazepin's radioed in on lap 1, so it's got, because of the halo, it's kept the headrest in place. It hasn't as if it's flown out, but obviously it's caused a major problem. And I would also suspect, the stewards have got access to all the cameras, so someone's probably seen it in race control. Said, "Hey, you need to get him in before you display the." But yes, the meatball flag, the black flag with the orange circle, which means your car is dangerous. Come in immediately to rectify that. And finally, of the 9 we were keeping an eye on, Tyson, another driver who had a poor weekend through no fault of his own, Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, Gasly just did not have a good weekend at all. It started off promising. He qualified 9th, ended up starting 8th because of the Bottas penalty, but then on the grid, a sensor issue on the car before the race had even started, which wasn't a promising sign, and then ended up retiring with a suspension issue on lap 15. So definitely not Gasly would have wanted this weekend.
Yeah, we've said it too often, Gasly rather than Gasly, but it's such a shame because Hodders, we know what he's capable of.
We absolutely do. I mean, he is essentially the de facto lead driver for AlphaTauri. He is more than capable of showing what he can do. He's a very capable driver, and I think we have a bit of a soft spot for the whole AlphaTauri team as a whole, including Gasly as well. I think with what had happened, I think with him it was just sheer rotten luck this weekend. I mean, they've had some rotten luck the last few weekends, to be fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed so. But they usually have a good run on the faster circuit, so we are heading towards, obviously, Mexico and Brazil, so we'll see what happens there. Moving on to our winners and our spinners. Let's find out who had a weekend to remember and who had a race they would rather forget. Tyson, I'm going to go with you first because I'm going to leave my one till last because that's going to have a lot of discussion, I think. Tyson,
yeah.
our lovely shoey friend Danny Ricciardo, your winner for the weekend.
Yep, big smile, Daniel Ricciardo. It looks like he has finally acclimatized himself to that McLaren. The last 3 races, he's been in the top 5. He obviously had that race win earlier in the season. And at USA, he got the better of Sainz twice. And as I've said, every point's crucial in the battle with Ferrari. And he is now pretty much on par with Lando, it seems.
Mm-hmm. He's catching Lando out, which will be interesting to see as the remainder of the championship unfolds. And Tyson, Daniel Ricciardo absolutely loves Texas. He loves going to the US, and he really, really gets into the swing of things out there when he goes out to Austin.
Oh yeah, and you could tell he was having a blast when he was driving the other car around as well.
Oh, Dale Earnhardt's
Yeah,
car. Oh, that is something special. And if you haven't seen that, we strongly suggest you check out YouTube and go and see that. But Tyson, we did just cover it. Your spinner of the weekend, Pierre Gasly.
yeah. Unfortunately, I have to give it to Gasly at this point. That's the third no-point score he's had in 4 races, and yeah, they really need those points now in the battle with Alpine. So hopefully, next few races he finds the form that he's been missing the last few weeks.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Hodders also come to you next. Whilst Gasly had a poor weekend, on the other side of the garage, and one of our favourites here at Double Wave Yellows, Yuki Tsunoda, great weekend.
He did, and for having such a relatively quiet weekend in theory as well. I mean, he got into Q3 again, which is always mindful. He was actually 10th in all 3 qualifying sessions, which is nice and even. Finishing up in 9th, so it was his first points in 6 races. The last time was in Hungary. Spinner, unfortunately, it has to be the homeboys that are Haas for being, 2021 Haas at their home race. What more can I say?
Yeah, self-explanatory. That one, a poor race. Well, not necessarily a poor race by their standards, but just Haas are absolutely nowhere at the moment. We'll do the honourable mentions first before my one, because I think this is going to create a lot of debate, my winners and spinners. Honourable mentions, actually, and it's to Michael Massey and Race Control, because there was a very brief, and I mean brief, virtual safety car deployed on lap 28 because there was a spot of debris line. No, stop changing my notes. Thank you. I'm looking at my notes and I'm seeing Hodders changing it halfway through. That doesn't work.
Sorry. You did put something else, though.
No, I was going to, but anyway. So a virtual safety car deployed on lap 28 because there was a bit of debris, but a very speedy marshal ran out, collected the debris, and I think we were only under virtual safety car for all of 30 seconds. It may have meant that in previous years we would have had to have gone for the full safety car, which would have ruined the race, or potentially just put the double waved yellows out, which would have been a bit dangerous. But yes, on to my winners and spinners for this weekend. And I'm sure most of you now have seen what happened on the grid walk. The first grid walk that we've had since the end of the 2019 season between Sky Sports' Martin Brundle and rapper Megan Thee Stallion. Brundle, for me, was the winner. He was doing his job. He did it really, really well. Did it quite hilariously. Megan Thee Stallion, and I think actually this is more to do with her entourage. It was poor. Pushing Martin Brundle out of the way twice when he's there doing his job. Megan actually wanted to talk to Martin Brundle. Hodders, I'll come to you first. We were cringing at this, watching this, and it's even worse now watching it back.
She wasn't the only celeb, but she was the most notable one. I mean, I'll look aside from the fact that she also used the grid walk to also do some sponsorships of us, which I think is a bit cheeky, but she's allowed to do that. I'm of the view that if you are on the grid walk, you are in the public eye, you know that the media are in there, you should really be amenable. And if you don't wish to, it's a simple no thank you, and that's fair enough. But again, you also need to brief your entourage that a case of, I'm in the media, if I want to speak to them, I'll say so, treat them with a bit of respect.
And that's the key phrase there, Tyson, respect. Martin has been very, very blunt in the last few days, saying, look, if you're going to come onto the grid, you need to show some respect because we're there doing our jobs. We have the right to ask questions of you. You don't have to answer it. A simple, polite, no thank you, not a problem. Do not have your security pushing us out the way because it's going to end up, what's going to end up happening is someone will get hurt or basically that person will be asked to leave by Formula One.
Yeah, it's definitely problematic if security starts throwing their weight around and pushing the media away. As you said, all they have to do is just say a polite no thank you and carry on moving on. They're not obligated to give interviews, but, it is nice if they can get it with them sometimes.
And we saw, was it Rory McIlroy? I think, yeah, he gave an interview to Martin Moore. Martin was great, lovely to meet you. Really happy. It was great. Martin wants to know, what's your interest here? Why are you here? Who are you supporting? But also, what are you doing at the moment? What's happening? What films are you working on? That sort of stuff. So, we want to hear that sort of. And Ben Stiller. Talking to him on the grid. Absolutely brilliant. And if anything, it's a chance for you to plug what you're doing to the British public and to the wider public.
Publicity.
Absolutely. Exactly. It was so frustrating, and it's unfortunate because over the 2-3 days since the race, this has dominated the headlines, not the title race battle that we saw between Max and Lewis. Anyway, rant over. We are going to move on from that, and we are going to move on to some positive talking points. Max versus Lewis, round 17, and I think it's actually fair to say at this point the momentum is with Max. He's had 3 wins in the last 6 races, compared with Lewis just getting 1. He's got a 12-point lead with 5 races to go, so that's 133 points. Hodders, Max is just slowly but surely starting to turn the screw at just the right time here.
He really is. I mean, considering, as we've run into the ground of the cows come home before, he could have been well ahead by now had things gone a different way. Nevertheless, despite that, he's stayed up there. He's making the most of things that are working. He's keeping that momentum over Lewis Hamilton. He has a 12-point lead with 5 races to go. If he can get some very solid results in Mexico and stuff in the next triple, anything is possible. He could not quite run away, but he could get an almost unassailable lead.
Yeah, and
it's
Tyson,
possible.
Yeah, absolutely, it's possible. And Tyson, one thing we haven't seen this year, I think this is the point now we're hoping this doesn't affect the championship, is reliability. We haven't seen any gearbox or major engine issues or what have you, any mechanical problems from the cars during the race.
You may have just jinxed it by saying that, but
we hope not.
we have seen it in past years. Just one race where someone has a breakdown is usually what cements the championship for someone, and I think it's a testament to the cars that they are just so reliable right now, and that's not what we want to be deciding the championship.
No, we want it to be the results on the track, the performance by the drivers, and obviously the strategy by the teams and the engineers.
Absolutely.
We don't want something going kaput in the final few races. I gave you guys a little bit of advance warning on this. I am going to nail you. Prediction time. Who is going to win the 2021 Drivers' World Championship? Tyson.
So the momentum is with Max right now, but I'm just thinking back to the first half of the season. Max had all the momentum, it was all going his way, and then Great Britain happened. Hungary happened. And this season, it's not over, not by a long shot. I think something similar could be in the works, so I'm going to put the prediction out there. I think Hamilton's going to pull this back.
Okay, so Tyson predicting Hamilton to pull this back and win his 8th World Championship. Hodders, what about you?
I'm going for the opposite. I'm going for Max, but I can't say by how much. I think it's going to be very, very close. I think it might even go down to whoever gets the checkered flag quicker at Abu Dhabi, to be honest. It's 12 points with 5 races to go. It's a brilliant title race. If Max can get the next couple of races under his belt, I think he has an unassailable lead. But again, we won't know until the races themselves, but I'm going to say Max is going to edge it. I would actually say Max by less than 10.
See, I did say so. I was going to force you to make a prediction, and I could very easily just sit on the fence here, or say what, or say what Bernie famously said in an interview. Said the one with the most points. Duh. But I'm going to put my money on Max as well, but I think it will quite literally come down to the last few laps in Abu Dhabi. It has been so close throughout. I think it will literally be a last lap battle to decide the championship. But we will see. One thing we did see at the Grand Prix over the weekend was just loads and loads of overtaking attempts. Now, officially, according to 4X, I think there was only about 19 overtakes, something like that. But I think that was not just necessarily like overtakes completed. We saw. Let me just check. So yes, 19 overtakes, but Tyson, we just saw so many wheel-to-wheel battles throughout the race. This was proper wheel-to-wheel stuff that we and the US public want to see.
Yeah, and this is why I love Kota as a track. It's one that allows for a lot of overtaking maneuvers to happen on track.
Absolutely, and who knows, we may get even more of that when we return next year with the 2022 cars. So, last but not least, we will have a look at the championship standings with 5 races to go. Max Verstappen has a 12-point lead, 287.5 points to Lewis Hamilton's 275.5. Valtteri Bottas is cementing his place in third on 185. A close battle for fourth and fifth between Sergio Perez and Lando Norris, 150 points, plays 149. Charles Leclerc leads the Ferrari battle in sixth on 128 points from Carlos Sainz in seventh on 122.5 points, so just 5.5 point lead there. Danny Ricciardo on 105, Pierre Gasly on 74, and Fernando Alonso rounding out the top 10 on 58 points. In the Constructors' Championship, Red Bull just clawing it back now. Mercedes still lead on 460.5 points from Red Bull on 437.5 points. So a 23-point gap. That is certainly within clawing back range at the next race. McLaren and Ferrari still doing battle in third and fourth. McLaren on 254, Ferrari on 250.5. Alpine and AlphaTauri also close battle there in fifth and sixth. Alpine on 104, AlphaTauri on 94. Aston Martin is starting to drop away now on 62 in seventh. Williams on 23 points. They haven't scored in the last 2 races. Alfa Romeo on 7, and of course Haas yet to score. Just quickly in other news, it's been reported this week that Ayrton Senna's father passed away this week at the age of 94, and from all of us at Double Wave Yellows, our sincere condolences to the Senna family. So, coming up soon, we have next week, as we've previously mentioned, on the 5th of November, the VSC podcast, where we're going to have a look back at the W Series. We're going to have a look at all of the races. We're going to have a look at all of the on and off track action. Then on the 12th of November, we're going to be releasing our review of the Mexican Grand Prix from Mexico City. We're now into the triple header, so after that, a week after that, the 19th of November, we're going to be reviewing the Brazilian Grand Prix from Interlagos, and then the week after that will be the Qatari Grand Prix. Hopefully, plenty of action to come from there. So that pretty much wraps it up from all of us. Hodders, we are in for an exciting build up for the end of the season.
We really are. 5 races to go, and everything is up in the air.
And Tyson, we just don't know what's around the corner. Mexico City, it's a very fast racetrack, but it is at altitude. It's one where Max tends to go well, but Lewis does have a lot of fans in the South American continent.
Yeah, Mexico's another good track, and it's a race I'm very much looking forward to.
Indeed so, and we will obviously see that in a couple of weeks' time. Hodders, Tyson, thank you very much for your company as always. And last, by no means least, many thanks to you for listening and for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a comment, and also don't forget to follow us on Twitter at DWavedYellows. From all of us here, be good, and if you can't be good, be safe. Take care, and talk to you next week. Bye.